The first time I watched Band of Brothers, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. The feeling was strange, as if I had just stepped into another world, where ordinary young men became real soldiers. I still can't forget the moment Dick Winters led the chaotic night jump in Normandy, or when Easy Company huddled in the foxhole at Bastogne, or the moment when they dedicated an entire episode to confront the harsh truth of the Dachau concentration camp. But the more I watch, the more I realise how cleverly hidden details were woven into the narrative things I completely missed when I first watched it. Have you ever imagined that the cast once accused the production of exploiting them throughout the filming process? Or the real reason why some scenes about Bill Guarner's sexually transmitted disease almost got cut? And most importantly, the truth that the weapons appearing throughout the film are actually from World War II. Today, we will reopen the darkest and most unknown behind-the-scenes doors of Band of Brothers. 20. The cast accused the film crew of exploiting them. I still remember, when watching the movie, I was deeply impressed by the action scenes. From the chaotic night parachute jump in Normandy, the Brecourt Manor assaults under a hail of bullets, to the freezing Ardennes forest battle in Bastogne, all of which were executed in an extremely vivid manner. It made me feel like I was really witnessing the battle right in front of me. The thunderous explosions, the thick smoke, and the fear as well as resilience of the soldiers. At that time, I thought it was just excellent acting. But few people know that in order to achieve such realistic footage, the cast had to undergo a grueling 10-day military training under the strict leadership of Captain Dale Dye, a Vietnam War veteran. They were woken up at 4 a.m. by loud commands, ran dozens of miles through freezing, muddy terrain, trained physically, to the point where their muscles were exhausted, ate minimal rations like real soldiers, and had to learn how to survive in the woods with little sleep, enduring bone-chilling rain. Many vomited, their feet were blistered, and their spirits were broken. But it was this harshness that bonded them as a team, recreating Easy Company's pain authentically. Damian Lewis whispered in the night, "I can't take it anymore, my legs are about to break." Captain Dye yelled back, "Get up! This is just a small part of the real war that Easy Company endured." When the training ended, they entered the film set with real scars, carrying the true spirit of soldiers to face the next challenges. Among them was a surprising detail that nearly changed the entire script. 19. The detail of Bill Garnier's STD nearly got the film cut. A producer once shared in a behind-the-scenes interview, "We almost had to cut that scene because of censorship fears, but it was that very detail that made the film more alive than ever." In the freezing Bastogne scene, Bill Guarner, played by Frank John Hughes, sat huddled by a small fire, his face pale as he confessed the pain while urinating. It was gonorrhea contracted from the Lulu's brothel in London, where American soldiers often sought comfort between battles. The film crew had intense debates, worried that audiences at the time would be shocked, but Hanks and Spielberg decided to keep it in to honour the authenticity of the story, the hidden corners of history that are often concealed. That shot with the flickering firelight on his dirty face made the audience feel the human pain amidst the war. Frank John Hughes, the actor who played Guarnere, once said in a behind-the-scenes interview, "I had to perform that scene naturally because Bill Guarnere was someone very straightforward, not afraid to talk about everyday things." One HBO editor recalled, "We had heated debates about whether to keep or cut it, but in the end, keeping it was the right choice. It made the film deeper." Details like these astonished viewers, but the film was even more costly with a huge budget that changed the way people viewed television. 18. The cost changed television. Perhaps few people know that Band of Brothers cost up to $125 million. A huge sum in 2001, enough to make many people in the television industry at the time gasp. Tom Hanks shared in an HBO behind-the-scenes documentary, "We are not just making a series, we are redefining television, turning it into something that can stand side by side with blockbuster films." That budget went into the massive set in Hatfield special effects to accurately recreate bomb explosions, a large cast, and a myriad of complex logistical costs. Many producers initially doubted, is television worth such a large investment? But the overwhelming success of the series answered that question, opening the golden era for high-quality programs influencing later blockbusters like The Pacific Game of Thrones and The Crown. "We are making history here," Hank said to the crew in a meeting, his voice deep. "Television is no longer cheap." Damian Lewis responded, smiling after a long shot. A producer asked with concern, "But is this cost justified?" "Absolutely," Spielberg confirmed from behind the camera. And that investment made Band of Brothers the standard, proving that television can tell historical stories deeply and grandly. 17. Using real World War II weapons. Over 700 real guns from World War II were stacked on the Hatfield set, each one carefully brought out of the storage as though it were a family heirloom. No fake M1 Garands, no plastic MP40s. Everything was real, ranging from $1,500 to $5,000 depending on condition, carrying the smell of old metal and the unique sound of clinking. A passionate fan from 2001 once wrote on a forum, "When I heard the gunshots in the film, I knew immediately that it wasn't a special effect. It was so real that it made my heart race." The film crew had to hire maintenance experts continuously and train the actors on how to hold load and shoot like real soldiers from 1944. This authenticity made the combat scenes not only visually stunning, but also emotionally heavy. Neil McDonough recalled, "Holding a real M1 Garand, I understood why soldiers from that time had to be so strong." Matthew Settle added, "It's heavy, it's cold, but when you fire, it feels like history comes alive in your hands." Captain Dye sternly instructed, "Don't let it fall. This is heritage, not a prop." Those guns turned the set into an actual battlefield, pulling the audience straight into 1944 with just the sound and weight. 16. The actors clearly noticed the fake ammo in the guns. If you have a sharp eye, you might notice in some chaotic combat scenes that the actors loaded fake bullets into the M1 Garand. Bullets that only contained gunpowder and a sealed head without real projectiles. They shimmered under the set lights used to maintain the pace of the film without having to pause and reload real ammunition during long takes. A post-production editor once laughed, "We deliberately let that small detail show, like a whisper to the audience that this is a movie, but still very real." The actors had to practice loading fake bullets for hours to make the action look natural, their hands swiftly gliding over the cold metal clips. Ron Livingston Lewis Nixon recalled, "I loaded fake bullets 100 times a day until my hands were calloused." Scott Grimes Joe Toy added, "But when the camera was rolling, I forgot they were fake. It felt like I was really fighting." Captain Dye instructed, "Load fast, load firmly. Even if it's fake, it has to be real." That small detail not only maintained continuity, but also reminded the audience of the meticulous work behind every frame. 15. The item Don Malarkey found in Episode 2. Don Malarkey raced through the yellowing grass fields of Brecourt Manor, bent down and picked up an item from a dead German soldier. At first, viewers thought it was the familiar Luger, but upon zooming in, it turned out to be the sighting device for a German 105mm cannon, a small metal lens gleaming in the sunlight. An older viewer once commented on YouTube, "I watched that scene over and over before I realised it wasn't a gun, but something that really changed the course of the battle." This detail was kept true to Malarkey's real memory, but many missed it as they got swept up in the rhythm of the film. The crew intentionally let it pass by quickly, like a reward for those who watched closely. Scott Grimes recalled, "I had to practice picking it up naturally because in real life, Malarkey did exactly that." Richard Speight Jr. asked on set, "What's that, man?" Grimes replied, "It's not a gun, but it's more useful than you think." That brief shot, though short, was proof of the historical accuracy Band of Brothers always strove for. 14. One village but 12 battlefields. Have you ever wondered why in Band of Brothers a small village in England could transform into numerous battlefields across Europe? From Normandy to Bastogne then, to Eindhoven. That's thanks to the vast Hatfield set. A 1,100-acre plot cleverly transformed into 12 different locations in a short amount of time. A behind-the-scenes technician once shared in an interview. We built wooden houses, planted trees, then tore them down and changed them in just a few days. In the morning, it's a French village by afternoon, it's a Belgian town, and by night, a German base. Dust flew everywhere as tanks rolled by special effects. Smoke enveloped the set, making the actors feel like they were truly in 1944 Europe, even though they were less than an hour's drive from London. Damian Lewis recalled, "Waking up in a tent looking out at the French fields by afternoon, it's the Ardennes forest. It made us get into character deeper than ever." Matthew Settle added, "Each time we finished a scene and saw the set change, I realised the huge effort behind every shot. The director shouted, 'Quick change, from France to Belgium, ja.' The technician responded, 'Ready rolling.'" This flexibility and creativity helped the film save enormous costs while maintaining geographic authenticity, making the audience feel like they had stepped into history without realising it all took place on a single plot of land. 13. Special cameo in Band of Brothers, Edward Babe Heffron. I still remember when watching Episode 4, Replacements. Suddenly in the crowd of Dutch civilians celebrating in Eindhoven, I noticed an elderly man standing quietly amidst the festive scene. When I looked closer, I gasped as I realised that was the real Edward Babe Heffron, a veteran of Easy Company making a brief cameo beside Robin Laing, who played his younger self. An older viewer once shared on a forum, "When I recognised him, I got goosebumps, the real person standing there witnessing his own life story being told." Heffron came to the set for just one day, standing silently and observing, then smiling when Laing greeted him. That moment wasn't heavily promoted, but it became an emotional highlight for those who knew. Robin Laing recalled, "He looked at me, said, 'You look just like me back then,' then fell silent. I almost cried." Tom Hanks whispered, "Thank you for coming. This is for you and your brothers." Heffron softly replied, "Keep telling the story, don't stop." That cameo, though, just for a few seconds, was a living bridge between the past and the present, making the film even more sacred. 12. The majority of the cast were British. There is an interesting detail in the film that few people notice. Over 50% of the main cast in Band of Brothers were British, from Damian Lewis Tom Hardy to James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, even though they had to speak with an American accent to portray American paratroopers. A casting director once revealed, "We chose British actors because they are familiar with various accents, and shooting in the UK made it easier, but who knew they would be this excellent?" They lived on the Hatfield set, wore military uniforms every day, practiced their American accents all night to avoid revealing their natural accents. It was this effort that created the authentic bond for Easy Company. Damian Lewis laughed. "The American accent was tough. I practiced for a month just to say Currahee correctly." Tom Hardy added, "But when I put on the uniform, I forgot I was British. I was just an American soldier." Michael Fassbender said, "This was our temporary home and we really lived like soldiers." The choice of British actors not only saved logistics costs, but also added depth to their performances, making the audience forget their nationality. 11. The secret rotating director system. Imagine a grand war series like Band of Brothers not being directed by a single director, but with the leadership changing almost every episode. A rotating system, kept secret to create stylistic diversity while maintaining narrative unity. A producer once revealed in the HBO behind-the-scenes documentary, "We didn't want a fixed visual style like a film. Each director brought their own perspective, making each episode feel like a different chapter of a book, but telling one story." The list of directors included big names: Phil Alden Robinson, Episode 1, Richard Loncraine, Episode 2, Michael Salomon, Episode 3, David Frankel, Episode 4, David Nutter, Episode 5, David Leland, Episode 6, Tony, to Episode 7, David Frankel, Episode 8, David Nutter, Episode 9, and Tom Hanks directing the final episode. Damian Lewis Dick Winters recalled, "Each director came with a different approach. Some focused on emotion, others on action, but all respected the spirit of Easy Company." Tom Hanks said, "The rotation made the series richer, avoiding monotony, while still keeping the consistency under Spielberg's supervision." This system, though not heavily advertised, was the secret that made Band of Brothers not only authentic, but also emotionally multi-layered, with each episode offering a new perspective from the soldiers themselves. 10. Who did Dick Winters write to in Band of Brothers? If you asked me which scene in the film stood out the most, it would definitely be the scene about Dick Winters' letter. In the quiet moments between bombs, Dick Winters sat by an old wooden table, writing a letter under the dim light of an oil lamp. At the time, most people thought Dick was writing to his wife or family, but the reality was quite different. Later, it was revealed that the letter was actually addressed to Dieter Ullmann, a close friend and his secretary throughout the war. A historian once wrote about Winters, "Dieter was the person he trusted the most, the one who helped him stay calm and record his thoughts between life and death." They never married, but their relationship provided immense emotional support, helping Winters cope with the pain of losing comrades. The letter in the film was a detail taken from real life, showing a human side of the famous commander. Damian Lewis Winters recalled, "When I filmed the letter scene, I thought about Dieter. She was the silent support Winters needed." Winters once wrote in the letter, "Thank you for always being here." Dieter replied, "Take care always." That scene, though, brief added emotional depth, reminding us that war wasn't just about guns, but also about these silent connections. 9. The Bastogne scene was shot indoors with fake snow. Few people know that to recreate the snow scene in the cold studio at Hatfield, hundreds of real and fake trees were set up covered with over 1.3 million pounds of artificial paper snow made from a cellulose polymer and plastic mix, to depict the harshness of Bastogne, where Easy Company endured 20 degrees cold continuous snow and relentless shelling during the winter 1944 Battle of the Bulge. The snow application process took 4 weeks, using 2 types of cellulose snow to create natural adhesion and movement with snow machines, large fans and cold lights to make the actors truly shiver. Not acting, but natural reactions to artificial cold. A production designer recalled, "We used artificial snow machines, large fans and cold lights to make the actors genuinely shiver. Not acting, but their natural reactions to the harsh environment we created." The actors wore thin military uniforms, breath visible in the cold studio air, creating an authentic chill so real that many of them had to drink hot tea after the shoot to recover. This detail not only made the scene visually stunning, but also conveyed the true suffering of the paratroopers, from hunger to cold-related illnesses. Scott Grimes recalled, "I was really shivering. The fake snow wasn't fake, but the cold wasn't either." Neil McDonough added, "When the camera was rolling, I forgot it was a studio. I just felt like I had to survive." That indoor shoot was cost-effective and safe, but still captured the harshness of the 1944 winter, making the audience feel the soldiers' pain. 8. The veterans who appeared at the start of each episode. I've always wondered why every episode of Band of Brothers starts with images of elderly men sitting on simple wooden chairs, their faces full of wrinkles. Who are they? Later I learned that these were the real veterans of Easy Company, appearing to share their stories directly with the audience. An older viewer once wrote in a 2001 review, When I heard them speak, I realised this wasn't just a film. This was a living testimony, and it felt like I was sitting listening to my grandfather telling stories from the past. Those interview segments were filmed separately, unscripted, to preserve the authenticity and emotion. They spoke of lost comrades' fear and the small moments between battles. One veteran slowly said, "I remember the day we jumped. It was pitch dark, gunshots all around." Another added, "It was painful, but we survived because of each other." He concluded, "And we are still here to tell the story." But those stories didn't just open the episodes, but also served as a red thread throughout the series, pulling the audience deeply into the past and making them feel the silent sacrifice of the soldiers. 7. Dick Winters left the film set. When Dick Winters, the real commander of Easy Company, visited the Hatfield set, he walked in, saw the actors in uniform holding guns and practicing like they did in the past. He suddenly turned away, his eyes red, and had to leave immediately. Damian Lewis, the actor who played Winters, recalled in an interview, "He looked at me, then at the whole crew. His face changed as if the memories of all his fallen comrades rushed back." Initially, Winters was disappointed with some of the inaccuracies, but after watching the entire series, he appreciated how the film captured the pain and spirit of Easy Company. Lewis remembered, "He said to me, 'You guys are just like them, I can't take it.' Tom Hanks comforted him. 'But the film is good, Mr. Winters. It honours you and your men.' Winters softly replied, 'Thank you. Keep going.'" Binay, that moment became proof of the emotional power of the series. It didn't just tell a story, it revived real memories from those who had been there. 6. Who was the girl Lewis Nixon went to visit in Paris? Trust me, this is the most valuable detail in the episode Crossroads. When Lewis Nixon tells Winters he's going to visit a girl in Paris, a small but meaningful detail taken from real life. That person was Irene Miller, who later became Nixon's second wife in 1946. A historian of Easy Company once wrote, "Irene was the warmth in the midst of war." Nixon sought her out to escape from alcohol and the pain. They met during their leave, bringing some rare peace amidst the chaos. This detail was kept in to show Nixon's human side, not just as a hard-drinking officer, but as a man searching for affection. Ron Livingston Nixon recalled, "When filming the scene about Paris, I thought about Irene. She was the reason Nixon kept trying to survive." Damian Lewis Winters responded on screen, "Good luck, Nix." Nixon whispered, "She's waiting for me. I have to come back." That story added a layer of gentle emotion, reminding us that even in war, there are connections that help people overcome. 5. Tom Hanks' cameo in Band of Brothers. If you're observant, you'll notice in one scene, when the convoy passes by a village, a group of soldiers leads enemy troops out to execute them. If you look closely, you'll see that the one holding the gun to carry out the execution is none other than Tom Hanks, the producer, and unexpected cameo dressed in British military uniform with a face covered in dirt. A fan once shared on Twitter, "I kept re-watching that scene just to see Hanks. He appeared as a silent tribute to the project he created." The short but meaningful cameo Hanks stands among the rescued British soldiers without speaking any lines, only smiling faintly as Winters and the team approach. Damian Lewis recalled, "When Hanks appeared on set, the whole crew laughed, but he was very serious, wanting to feel the role of a soldier." A British soldier in the film shouted, "Save us!" Hanks responded softly, "It's easy." Winters added, "Thank you, gentlemen." That moment was not only fun, but also demonstrated Hanks's humility, the man behind the series who still wanted to be part of history. 4. Why did a soldier use a lighter to dim the M1 Garand's sight? If you missed it, go back and watch the last patrol episode and pay attention to the detail when Shifty Powers, played by Ion Bailey, quietly uses a lighter to burn the M1 Garand's sight, creating a darkened layer to reduce glare under the strong sunlight. A veteran once commented on a military forum, I saw that scene and got goosebumps. That's exactly the trick soldiers use to aim better, not something Hollywood made up. This small detail comes from the real experience of American paratroopers. Bright metal sights reflect sunlight, revealing positions and making it difficult to aim precisely. The lighter burn creates natural black smoke, improving vision without specialized equipment. Ion Bailey recalled, "I practiced that motion for hours. It had to be natural, like soldiers did, without thinking much about it." A fellow soldier in the film asked, "What are you doing?" "Shifty Proa." Powers responded softly. "Reducing the glare makes it easier to aim in the sun," Captain Dye instructed. "Nice job, keep it like that." This small trick not only added authenticity, but also reminded the audience of the survival wisdom of soldiers in harsh conditions. 3. The song Blood upon the risers in episode Why We Fight. Do you remember when Easy Company moves through Bavaria in episode 9, Why We Fight, and they start singing Blood Upon the Risers, a dark graphic military song about paratroopers dying when their parachutes fail to open? The song is an actual tradition among American paratroopers, often sung to keep morale up amidst danger, with a lively melody but horrific lyrics about parachute accidents. The filmmakers kept the original lyrics to honour this truth. Matthew Settle remembered, "When we sang, the whole crew laughed, but behind that there was the haunting memory of lost comrades." Damian Lewis added, "It made the scene more alive, as if you were listening to the paratroopers of 1945. That song, though dark, was how soldiers faced death, a small but deeply emotional detail. 2. The meaning of Easy Company's motto, Kurahi. Kurahi? The battle cry that echoed across the Hatfield set every time Easy Company trained or went into battle. Wasn't just a shout, it had deep meaning from the Cherokee language, "We stand together," or "stand alone." A historian once wrote, "It was Captain Sobel's reminder when training them on Currahee Hill, standing alone but united as one." That motto became a symbol of the resilience and team spirit of Easy Company, shouted in all circumstances, from training to combat. Damian Lewis said, "Every time I shouted Currahee, I felt the team was truly one unit." Neil McDonough added, "It wasn't just a battle cry, it was a promise to each other." The commander shouted loudly, "Currahee!" The whole team responded, "We stand together." Winters whispered, "Forever." Though the motto was never fully explained in the film, it served as a red thread throughout, reminding the audience of the soldiers' mental strength. 1. The cast was full of future stars. When Band of Brothers premiered in 2001, few could have predicted that the young cast, mostly unknown at the time, would later become major Hollywood stars. A casting director once revealed, "We chose them for their talent, not their names." Who knew that later Tom Hardy, James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender and Simon Pegg would become A-list stars? They started on the Hatfield set, learning from Captain Dye, living as real soldiers, and that experience shaped them into outstanding actors. Tom Hardy-Janovic remembered, "This was a turning point. The film taught me how to immerse myself in a role." James McAvoy said, "I learned more than any acting class." Michael Fassbender added, "The future looks bright thanks to Band of Brothers." Simon Pegg laughed, "Thank you, film. It opened doors for all of us." Sita, the series not only told a historical story, but also served as a springboard for their careers, proving that sometimes the smallest roles lead to the greatest successes. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe so you won't miss our next videos. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next video.